Coming up on Carolina News Now. The Lady Gamecocks return home after a big win.
Especially winning a national championship, this is a great deal for us.
How South Carolina celebrated their recent victory. Plus, rental restrictions lifted.
The city of Wilmington knew that what it was doing was at a minimum highly controversial and legally questionable.
Why this popular North Carolina vacation spot could be changing their way on how you stay. And a very special Charleston homecoming.
Happy birthday.
How a World War II veteran is kicking off his 100th birthday celebration weekend. And welcome to Carolina News Now. I'm Maddie Gardner. We are so happy that you are joining us. Carolina News Now is powered by television stations across North and South Carolina. So every week we like to get you caught up on the top stories, the most interesting news, and the weather forecast for your weekend. And I have to say, the biggest story in the Carolinas this week has to be the Gamecocks winning the national championship. Yes, the women's basketball team officially national champions, and they were welcomed back to Columbia with open arms from their fans. They beat UConn over the weekend, and when they were welcomed back into South Carolina, Lisa Wiseman was there and has the excitement.
Hundreds of fans packed the plaza outside of the Gamecocks house, the Colonial Life Arena, as they awaited their team's return as champions. Some of the biggest fans waiting close to 2 hours for this. The team came out, thanked the fans, saying that they can really hear them when they're out on the court, and you could really feel that support even today. We talked with fans of all ages, students who cut class, and athletes from other sports teams like the volleyball team. They say that the basketball team, they show up to support them at their game.
Well, one of my best friends, Bree Hall, is on the women's basketball team, so I just came out to support her, especially for them, especially winning a national championship. This is a great deal for us, and we were in T-Coop last night swimming in the pool, and we're really excited to see them.
Everyone from the students, the staff, the faculty, the residents of Columbia, really everyone connected to this university, still so excited over the championship. There's going to be a parade coming up later this week. In Columbia, Lisa Wiseman, Live 5 News.
And that parade will be held next Wednesday. That is April 14th at 6 o'clock. So if fans are interested, they can go congratulate the Lady Gamecocks. Of course, not the only Carolina team that played in a national championship. The UNC men's basketball team also played in the title game. They unfortunately lost against Kansas, but the team certainly put up a fight, and fans were ready to welcome them back to Chapel Hill. Take a look at this video that we captured as the team arrived back to the Dean E. Smith Center in Chapel Hill. An enthusiastic crowd there. You can see that players and staff hopped off the bus. They had a standing ovation. You see some of the players, Armando Bacon, Leaky Black, Brady Manick, and of course head coach Hubert Davis, all arriving home. Coach Davis actually stopped to talk to fans once he got off the bus. He thanked everyone, saying that seeing that support put a smile on their faces.
And I hope that out there on the floor that you can see that we love playing basketball, and we love playing basketball for this program and this university, and we look forward to, I know the year just ended, but we're looking forward to next year already.
Meteorologist Rachel Coulter is joining us now. Rachel, goodness, the Carolinas have seen some wild weather this week.
Yeah, that's right. We had a lot of severe weather, especially in South Carolina, down into Georgia. That's where several tornadoes have been confirmed after 2 rounds of severe weather. We're going to be much calmer, just colder heading into the weekend.
All right, what are we looking at here?
So what we'll notice is just several disturbances working overhead. And so Friday plans anticipate the potential for a few showers across the Carolinas. That's a possibility, but the best chance of precipitation, I say precipitation because we could see a rain snow mix in the mountains. We could even see a little bit of accumulation in the highest of elevations in the mountains. So that's Friday 5 o'clock, and you can see some of that activity scattered across the Carolinas. As we work our way through time, what we'll notice is that potential for a few of those passing showers to continue overhead, but then we'll dry out into your Saturday morning. But look at your temperatures, waking back up in the 30s in the Charlotte area. We'll still be starting off fairly mild across Raleigh, Fayetteville, down to Charleston, up into Wilmington as well. But eventually the cooler temperatures work in, and high temperatures will only make it to the low 50s at times. Certainly by 5 o'clock dinner time frame, if you're going to be heading out and about in the mountains, you're going to be looking at in the upper 30s to mid 40s, 50s as you travel off towards the east, as warm as 57 degrees there for Wilmington around 5 o'clock on Saturday. Into Sunday, seeing some clearing, and we should be drying out at that point, but it's going to be cold. We could actually see some frost and freeze locations across the area, especially since those temperatures will be dropping below freezing. Look at Boone, 28 degrees to start off Sunday morning plans, 30s just above freezing in the Charlotte area, low to mid 40s, so a little more mild right along the east coastline, but staying dry. So all in all, looking at the next 3 days, those temperatures will be topping out in those 40s and 50s Nashville on Friday, but a little bit cooler heading into your Saturday.
Yes, Rachel, thank you so much. We will, of course, check back in with her toward the end of the show to get another check of the weekend forecast. She's going to break down both the mountains and the coast. If you are traveling to the coast, you may be headed to Wilmington. It's a popular vacation spot for those of us who live in the Carolinas. And with the advent of short-term rental companies, things like VRBO and Airbnb, it made booking a place to stay even easier. But for years, there's been an ongoing legal battle with those short-term rental property owners and the city. And Michael Prats has been following this story for years and has a big update from the courts this week.
I was in love with Wilmington. We lived there for all those years, and this has put a damper on how I feel about Wilmington and their city government and how they run their government.
Dave Schroeder says his feelings about Wilmington have changed after the city fought him and his wife over short-term rentals. It all started when the city of Wilmington passed an ordinance to require registration of rentals, then placed a lottery system and cap in place to decide who would be allowed to rent. The Schroeders had planned to use their Wilmington home as a short-term rental so they could still visit while they lived in the mountains, but the ordinance prevented that. That's when they sought legal help.
I think it's pretty fair to say that the city of Wilmington knew that what it was doing was at a minimum highly controversial and legally questionable. And I think that's giving them the benefit of the doubt. But nevertheless, they decided to do it, and they effectively dared citizens to sue them.
Opposing attorneys claim Wilmington has the right to restrict rentals since they are in its zoning ordinance, and the law prohibiting these restrictions is in the state's building code requirements. But a Superior Court judge and now the State Court of Appeals have ruled against the city. It's a decision that could impact short-term rental restrictions not only in Wilmington but across the state.
For the most part, the court today said, and this applies to all of North Carolina, that when you're dealing with short-term rental properties, you need to live and let live. Otherwise, the courts are going to be there to smack you down.
So people can rent out their homes no matter how long the lease is for. And now this isn't the end of the road for the city necessarily. It still has the option to appeal the court's decision with the state Supreme Court.
Yes, that was Michael Prats reporting. A lot of interesting things going on there. But we were talking about that weather earlier in the show. You know, we had some wacky weather in both Carolinas, even tornado warnings and tornado touchdowns in some parts of South Carolina this week. Flooding has also been a big issue, but it has been for decades for some people who live in Mecklenburg County. And Mecklenburg County calls flooding the most expensive natural disaster that they have to deal with. So Caroline Hicks went out. She spoke to people who are trying to mediate those floods and really come up with a solution that can save us all money.
The rushing water of Little Sugar Creek is one of many areas prone to flooding when rain hits the area.
It just comes up.
Catawba River keeper Brandon Jones set up a litter getter to keep the trash from impacting water quality and causing more flooding.
There's boom on either side connected to a pontoon cage, which is completely overloaded right now with both sticks and plastics.
He says volunteers will clear that out before the next storm hits. This creek in Chantilly also tends to overflow, but this floodplain was not always here.
Where we're standing used to be apartments, the Doral apartments. Across the creek there used to be the Cavalier apartments. We were able to buy these people out. We had FEMA money and local money put together.
Removing people from the risk on a voluntary basis is the county's strongest mitigation tool.
That floodplain spreads that water out and slows it down. That's natural infrastructure. Well, the problem again is if you have homes in there.
Flooding will still happen, so he asks that if you see something, you say something.
If people see blockages, call 311. We'll send a crew out there and remove that blockage.
Jones says there are things you can do yourself.
A rain barrel to catch the runoff coming off your own roof. You can use that for gardening, for irrigation. You can disconnect those downspouts, so water that's coming off your roof, try and disperse it across your yard so it's not going straight into a storm drain, things like that.
That was Caroline Hicks reporting there. We have one more story before we head to break, and it is about the high path avian flu. You have probably heard about this by now. We've reported about it right here on Carolina News Now that veterinarians across North and South Carolina have been watching cases of bird flu rise over the last few weeks. And this week, North Carolina imposed some new sanctions and suspensions on the poultry industry. It is all an effort to reduce what they call cross-contamination. Maddie Kurth has the latest from Greenville.
If there's a ban on commercial sales, that's going to impact us pretty heavily.
Greg Cannon has been on the phone all day with hatchling distribution agents. He sold the last chick of his most recent order, but with high-path bird flu ripping through the country, is it safe to order more?
We certainly have been concerned about it, but we have been selling. We've sold some chicks this year, and we usually sell about 600 chicks a year out of the store. So
7 commercial farming operations across Johnston and Wayne counties had to euthanize more than 90,000 turkeys and more than 280,000 chickens in the past week.
What we're seeing with the spread of this virus in our commercial birds, and also what we're seeing nationally, shows that there's a lot that we still have not learned about how this virus actually sheds.
His office most recently placed a suspension on all poultry shows and live public sales of birds, but relief came for Cannon and other feed store owners.
This is not for, like, say, pet stores and that type of thing. But when we're talking about open sales, auctions, swaps, poultry shows, those types of things where we got a large group of people that are coming together with maybe a mixed group of birds.
Cannon acts diligently to keep his product safe from infection.
I want to make sure when we order ours that we get them immunized before they come here.
And tries to keep the local industries afloat through the threat.
You know, I do have some farmers that have chicken houses, and they are a little concerned about it. And
all while practicing biosecurity to limit the spread of disease.
They obviously don't handle my chickens and don't get around the chickens when they're here.
Reporting for Carolina News Now, I'm Maddie Kurth.
That was Maddie Kurth reporting for us. We have a lot more ahead on Carolina News Now. I hope you will stick around. Coming up after the break, the history behind 40 acres and a mule. Also, the story of a community welcoming home a World War II veteran for his 100th birthday in Charleston. Plus, we'll have another look at your weekend weather forecast with meteorologist Rachel Coulter. Carolina News Now will be back in just 45 seconds. Welcome back to Carolina News Now. If you are just joining us, we are powered by television stations across North and South Carolina, telling stories toward the end of the week to get you ready for the weekend and also giving you a look at the regional weather forecast, so stick around for that. But first, no matter the culture, farming is familiar for so many, but for a black farm in South Carolina, their crops weren't for selling, but rather a means for survival. Darian Henderson explains this story.
When you think of farm life, chickens may come to mind.
No Sunday meal was complete without chicken.
Or maybe hogs. And even some mules. Here on Freewoods Farm in Socastee, you will see plenty of animals, but that's not all.
We have collard greens, turnips, mustards, cabbage,
And in the summer,
Sweet peas and string beans and watermelons and cantaloupes and cucumbers, squash.
talk about a healthy harvest. With 40 acres to cover,
This row is not bad.
O'Neill Smalls calls on help from volunteers like Craig James.
You have everything you need. You know, you can put a house out here, you have your farm, you have your vegetables and produce.
Together, they make their rounds across the farm,
One more row and then we'll have this completed.
planting produce and feeding the livestock. Looking at Freewoods Farm from afar, it appears to be the standard American farm. However, there's a deeper story sewed into this soil.
Freewoods was a black community, started right at the end of the Civil War, and lasted for that 100 years we're talking about, that first century of freedom.
After a tumultuous 300 years of slavery, Smalls says with nothing but their freedom, black families only asked for one thing: 40 acres and a mule.
They thought they could make it if they could get 40 acres of land. Well, they didn't get it.
Instead, roughly 30 black families put their minds and tools together to create a self-sustained community. You see, farming on this land wasn't just an obligation, it was the only means of survival.
They had to fashion a new life for themselves. They grew almost everything they ate. In addition to talking about what happened on the farm, we have to talk about what happened in the community.
After hours of working tirelessly in the field, these black farmers built their own churches and schoolhouses that still stand today. To earn money, the farmers grew cash crops like tobacco and cotton. This self-supported way of living carried on from 1865 to 1900, spanning 35 years.
What they did here, I think, is a remarkable story.
In fact, it's a tale Smalls is vowing to never let die, which shows in what we see here today. Crops constantly growing, chickens producing eggs daily, and mules to haul it all away. It's this preservation of history that's gotten black South Carolinians like James grabbing the seed bags to lend a helping hand.
And that's how you keep something like this alive. You know, you have a few people that come out and volunteer, but you know, just you want to get the community more involved in something like this.
Put some in the trough down there.
Today, Freewoods Farm Museum is also the only known black farmers museum in the country. Now, centuries later, several things have changed. But when it comes to work in the field,
The same old way. We do it the way they did it.
in Socastee,
There's still work to be done. There's still work to be done.
Darian Henderson, WMBF News.
Thank you, Darian, for sharing that beautiful storytelling with us, and what a story it is. For our final story tonight on Carolina News Now, I want to take you back to April 9th, 1922. That is when Vester Owens was born in Cross, South Carolina. He has quite a resume. He's a World War II veteran. He stormed the beaches of Normandy, then he moved to Texas. But this weekend, it's his 100th birthday, and he says he wanted to come back home to celebrate it. So he found a welcoming crowd at the Charleston airport, and Melissa Rademacher has that story.
Thank you, sir. Happy birthday.
Vester Owens arrives at his gate in the Charleston airport to cheers and handshakes of gratitude. The double amputee was drafted into the Army in 1942 and served for 27 years total between the Army and the Air Force. He says it's been a long time and a long trip, but he's happy to be back.
I'm fine. I feel good. I just don't have any legs.
He thanked his fellow soldiers from D-Day, who he says are the reason he is here to celebrate turning 100.
I'm a country boy. I didn't know how to swim. And when I jump off in Normandy with water up to here, I had the rifle in this hand and a bag that weighed 80 pounds on this side. It's a good thing somebody else could swim, otherwise I would drown.
Owens left the terminal with an escort from Charleston Fire, Police, and Sheriff's Departments, welcoming him home a hero. Owens' daughter says it's an honor.
And I'm happy to bring my dad back home because that was his wish, to celebrate his 100th birthday in Cross, where he was born.
Back with meteorologist Rachel Coulter here. Rachel, you're talking about a cool down this weekend.
That's right. You know, it's funny, in Charlotte, we ended up topping out around 81 degrees yesterday afternoon.
It's nice.
Not going to reach the 60-degree mark by Saturday afternoon. So that just goes to show how much cooler we're going to be. We're going to be tracking the potential for some snow showers in the highest elevations of the mountains, wrapping up the work week and heading into the weekends.
It's supposed to be spring.
Yeah, we're just going to continue with the roller coaster temperatures.
I'm looking for it here.
Exactly. So in terms of what to plan for heading out the door, especially for those afternoon plans, what I'm showing you are your afternoon high temperatures. There's your mountain forecast high temperatures. Upper 40s in the mountains on Friday, 50s in Asheville, 40s both Saturday and Sunday in the mountains, but trying to warm up a little bit heading into your Sunday, trending warmer anyway, and we'll continue that warming trend into next week. But as far as those weekend plans go, I definitely anticipate highs only in the upper 50s in the Charlotte metro area on Saturday, upper 50s even in the Raleigh area, Columbia upper 50s as well. But we do try to trend warmer once again heading into your Sunday. So Raleigh looking at those low to mid 60s, Sunday mid to upper 60s for Charlotte, near 70 degrees for Columbia. So if you're going to be traveling out towards the East Coast, or if you head out that way, temperatures will be pretty warm on Friday, near 70 degrees, but eventually that cold front will move through, taking those temperatures back to the 60s for most of the rest of your afternoon plans for your Saturday and your Sunday. In terms of precipitation, just some spotty showers possible for your Friday across the Carolinas, but we are still tracking that potential for a rain-snow mix across the mountains, and the highest elevations could see a little bit of accumulation. That is certainly a possibility. Those winds out of the northwest, it's going to be blustery, it's going to be cold, but fortunately we'll start to see some clearing, certainly some drying out as we head into your Sunday.
I cannot believe we are still expecting snow in early April, but I guess that's how it goes here in the Carolinas. That's going to do it for this week's Carolina News Now. We are so happy that you joined us right here, getting you caught up on the top stories and the weather forecast from both North and South Carolina. Once again, we are powered by television stations across both states, and we're right here every week. So I hope you have a wonderful and safe weekend.